From a second secret room in the desert pyramid to special properties of the spear, these are 100 Minecraft facts. The desert pyramid actually has 2 treasure rooms. This is definitely one of the most recognizable structures in Minecraft, and normally most people just break the block in the middle, collect the items from the 4 chests, avoid the TNT underneath, and leave. But with the archaeology update, several structures received changes, and the main one was the desert pyramid. So coming over to the side of this main room, there is this pile of sand on the floor, which you can break to find suspicious sand. And after clearing all this sand, you reveal the second treasure room and end up with many items for doing this excavation. A lot of people are terrified of piglins because if you attack one of them, all the others come after you. But if you are powerful enough to defeat the piglin in a single hit, it does not even have time to warn its friends, and everything stays peaceful. Most Minecraft creatures attack you with bows, arrows, and things like that, which we have already seen in real life. The most unusual one of all is definitely the evoker that attacks you with magic and even summons these little creatures to attack you, which does not exist in real life. It is very common to think that upgrading the material of your armor will make you more protected, but that is not always the case because for some reason the iron helmet, copper helmet, leather cap, and even the turtle shell give you exactly the same amount of armor. In my opinion, the ancient city is one of the most interesting structures in Minecraft. That is because it is made up of several smaller structures inside, like this ice structure or this tower here. One of the most unusual structures is this one, which may not look special, but it is actually the Mojang logo, the company that created Minecraft. If lightning strikes a mushroom, it turns into a brown mushroom. And just like a normal mushroom, it also gives you mushroom stew if you use a bowl on it. But a special property exclusive to the brown mushroom is that if you feed it a flower before using a bowl on it, it gives you suspicious stew. What is even more interesting is that depending on the flower you fed it, the suspicious stew you receive will have a different effect. And this is a list of all the effects you can get. Minecraft's dimensions are completely different from one another. Even so, there are 3 blocks that generate naturally in all 3 dimensions: the bedrock, obsidian, and a regular chest. Sugarcane has been in Minecraft since the earliest versions. Even so, many people still think it can only be planted on dirt or sand. But the reality is that there are 11 different blocks where you can plant sugarcane. And surprisingly, none of them affects how fast or how tall the sugarcane grows. When you find a village, each villager will have a profession based on its job site block. The only exception is this villager wearing a green coat, which is considered unemployed. But the interesting part is that specifically in Java Edition, this villager is very rare because it never spawns when you breed 2 other villagers. In fact, you can only find it while exploring naturally generated villages. And speaking of villagers, their favorite item is definitely the emerald. Most people get these emeralds through trading, and the main reason is that this is one of the few ores that only generates in specific biomes. Few people know this, but emerald ore only generates in these mountain biomes. I have already talked about the mushroom, but there is another creature that is also infected by mushrooms. That is this skeleton variant called the bog. Few people know this, but these 2 creatures share one property. Using shears on them removes their mushrooms. The mushroom turns back into a normal cow, and this skeleton loses the mushrooms on its head. One of the best blocks for building and decorating your world is concrete because it has a completely smooth texture and very vibrant colors. Its only problem is that you have to place it in water to turn it from concrete powder into regular concrete. But there is an extremely simple way to do this conversion that saves a lot of time. Just hold the concrete powder in one hand and a pickaxe in the other. Then hold the attack and place buttons at the same time. There are some situations in Minecraft where you will need a lot of wood. In that case, it is very useful when this giant oak tree variant grows. But did you know there is a way to always grow a large tree? By making a cross above the sapling and breaking this block in the middle, whenever it grows, it will always become a large tree for some reason. In Minecraft, mushrooms are very unusual because you can find them in several different places throughout your world. Perhaps the strangest place where they can generate is on the nether roof, right on top of the bedrock. The interesting part is that because they grow here, if you have a single wooden bowl, you can survive up here for a very long time. Most potion effects work on both players and creatures. One of the only effects exclusive to the player is night vision, because it makes no difference whether a creature can see in the dark, since it is guided by the game's code. Even so, for some reason, the giant, the wither, and the ender dragon are completely immune to this effect. Everyone knows that nighttime in Minecraft is dangerous, but midnight can be even more dangerous. That is because every day, exactly at midnight, there is a 10% chance of an event called a zombie siege happening. When it happens, dozens of zombies begin spawning much faster than normal. You receive no warning, but they start attacking your villagers and trying to destroy the village. There are dozens of blocks in Minecraft, but this one is one of the most special. I'm not saying it because it's a cute little golem or anything, but because when you look at its name, it has the longest item name in the whole game. The waxed weathered copper golem statue has 35 characters, including spaces, and barely barely fits on the screen when you look at it. But what's even more interesting is this potion here, the lingering potion of the Turtle Master. While the little golem is the block with the longest name, this potion is the item with the longest name of all, with 37 characters. Everyone already knows that TNT is an explosive in Minecraft, but the abbreviation TNT means trinitrotoluene, which is a real chemical compound that is actually explosive. But the interesting part is that in Minecraft, we make it with gunpowder, while in real life, it has nothing to do with gunpowder. Most Minecraft animals eat one or more items. Even so, every animal has its favorite diet. Perhaps the strangest diet of all belongs to the new camel husk, because it likes eating rabbit's feet. If you place this warped fungus on the ground or in a flower pot, any nearby hoglin will start running away. It may seem completely random, but a Mojang developer explained exactly why this happens. It is because this fungus smells very bad, and they run away because they do not like the smell. Something very similar happens when you place a nether portal, because these big pigs also run away. And once again, the same Mojang developer explained the reason. It is simply because the portal makes a sound they find very annoying, and honestly I do too. Each Minecraft block has a size equivalent to 1 meter in real life, and because of that, we can do some very interesting calculations. By calculating the weight of each block, we find that a gold block would weigh 19 metric tons. And among all Minecraft blocks that exist in real life, this would be the heaviest of all. One of the main properties of netherite is that it does not burn in lava. You can throw your equipment into it and it stays completely intact. But this lava resistance also works while you are wearing the armor, because when you fall into lava, it does not lose any durability. And this is the difference between netherite and diamond, for example. Boot enchantments and effects work on armor stands, and because of that, you can equip boots with Frostwalker and freeze a lake. But you can also equip leather boots and leave the armor stand standing still on powder snow. One of the most annoying blocks to collect is the magma block, which only generates here in the nether. It is very important for building piglin farms, so you normally have to collect a lot of it. One strategy you can use is crouching while standing on it, because then you no longer take damage. You can place any entity in the game inside a minecart, but one that few people use is a boat. This can be very useful because you can place 2 creatures in the boat and then place the boat in the minecart to transport both at once. There is an enchantment that can actually be worse for you, and this happens when you enchant your shovel with Fortune 3. There are not many blocks where Fortune helps when used on a shovel, but the worst part is that whenever you break gravel, it will always drop flint, and you will never get the block. Some blocks are easy to find but difficult to obtain, like this dirt path, which you can get in creative mode, but there is no way to collect in survival mode. The rarest one that can be obtained in survival mode is tall grass, that normally when you try to collect it, you only get regular grass. The only place where you can obtain the tall grass item is inside chests in taiga villages. When you are mining, it is very common to find this tough block, but if there are some iron ores mixed in, you should pay close attention. That is because an iron ore vein can rarely generate inside this tuff. Removing all the surrounding blocks makes it look like this, and if we remove the tuff, it looks like this. That is a lot of iron in one place. When you're fishing in certain biomes, you can obtain different items. Perhaps the strangest one is that while fishing in a jungle, that you can catch bamboo, and it is the only biome where this happens. Another biome with a very interesting property is the Badlands. You have probably walked through here and noticed that several mine shafts generate on the surface, and this is the only biome where that happens. The reason is that caves in the Badlands contain much more gold than caves in other biomes. When you defeat the Ender Dragon, an egg appears on top of this fountain. But the reality is that it does not necessarily spawn on top of the fountain. It spawns on the highest block at coordinates 0, 0. So if you build a huge pillar in the middle before defeating the dragon, when the fight ends, the egg will spawn up here. There is a very good way to scare your friend using a note block. That is because when you place a monster head on top of a note block and use it, it makes the sound of that monster. With the zombie and skeleton, this may not seem like much, but placing a creeper head makes this sound here. And placing this dragon head, which you find on end ships in the end, makes this terrifying sound here. Have you ever wondered how much real-life time a full day in Minecraft takes? The answer is that a full Minecraft day takes 20 minutes in real life. 10 minutes are daytime itself, 1.5 minutes are sunset, 1.5 minutes are sunrise. And the full night lasts 7 minutes. So if we do the math, one entire year in Minecraft takes 5 days in real life. Wait, if there has been even one fact so far that you did not know, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. If you have stayed at your base for a very long time, you have probably noticed that the monsters became much more difficult. Spiders spawn with more potion effects, and skeletons and zombies spawn with much more armor. But this is not luck, and it is not random. There is actually a hidden meter in your Minecraft world called local difficulty that increases the longer you remain in the same place. And the higher this local difficulty is, the stronger the monsters that spawn there become. it comes. The name tag has many interactions with several creatures. It can change a rabbit's appearance, turn creatures upside down, and even make a Vindicator extremely aggressive. But perhaps the least known interaction of all is that if you use a name tag on a large slime, when you defeat it, all the smaller slimes will also keep the name, and you can repeat this process one more time to get many renamed tiny slimes. If you have ever crafted a tool on the crafting table, you probably make it like this. But the reality is that every tool can be crafted facing either side, and even in these corners of the crafting table, it just looks very strange. Now I am going to show you something you will never be able to unsee, so get ready. If you place a clock and then turn it upside down, it looks a lot like this crying emoji. Look at that, you will never be able to unsee it. The most dangerous creature in Minecraft is definitely the Warden. It has more health than the Ender Dragon, deals more damage than a Wither, and attacks you from close and long range. But even though it is so powerful, there is a very simple way to defeat this boss. When the Warden is spawning, it rises out of the ground until it reaches the surface. But if you place many blocks around it while it is spawning, especially where its head is, it will continue spawning in the same place. However, it will be suffocated by the blocks and die without you doing absolutely anything. Every Minecraft creature has a different height. You can clearly see that the Enderman is very tall, the skeleton and zombie are a little shorter, and the creeper is even shorter. It may seem purely visual, but it also changes their hitboxes. This is very important because by using these height differences, you can make specific monsters spawn in your farm. This, for example, is a monster farm where anything can spawn except Endermen. But if I place many trapdoors up here, only creepers and spiders will spawn because they are much shorter. Minecraft creatures also have movement controlled by the game's code. This code is responsible for making them avoid dangerous blocks, holes, and anything else in their path. But the interesting part is that the creature's movement code also takes into account blocks that are next to dangerous blocks. So it makes sense that the zombie prefers this path with nothing beside it instead of this other path with magma blocks next to it. But the interesting part of all this is that water is considered dangerous. So if you have a small path with water beside it and a huge path without water, the monster prefers the huge path without water. Some Minecraft blocks look like full blocks, but they're actually slightly smaller. You cannot notice it visually, but it becomes easy to see when the player walks between them. This is special because by placing one of these slightly smaller blocks on top of another, you can shoot an arrow through this tiny gap. And what is even more interesting is that you can clearly see that the cactus block is slightly smaller. But when you place another cactus on top, the texture connects and this small gap disappears. However, few people know that it only disappears visually, and you can shoot an arrow through any cactus. There is a limit to how many creatures or entities can occupy the same place. Because of that, if there are 24 minecarts and the player falls inside them, the player starts taking a lot of damage. The same thing happens in your farms, and skeletons or zombies also die if there are more than 24 in the same space. But there is a trick that makes this limit infinite. That is to simply place a vine on the wall. Now you can place as many monsters as you want and they will not take damage. The Ender Pearl has the simple purpose of teleporting the player, but because teleportation in games is very confusing, you can use it to pass through walls and even ceilings. If there is a ceiling 1 block thick and you place a ladder until you are right against its edge, just look directly into this corner and throw an Ender Pearl to pass through the ceiling. Passing through a wall is a little more complicated, but all you have to do is hold the sprint button, throw the pearl into the middle, and keep running and jumping. Then you also pass through the wall. One of the best forms of transportation in Minecraft is the elytra, but it only became good when Mojang made rockets give you a boost. Players normally craft these rockets with 1 gunpowder and 1 paper to make 3 rockets. But if you add more gunpowder to the recipe, you also increase the rocket's flight duration. This rocket with only 1 gunpowder is good when you are flying short distances and need a lot of control. But this long duration rocket lets you fly much farther and is very useful when you need to travel somewhere very distant. Another very common thing, especially at the beginning of the game, is crafting your armor as you gather resources. Because of that, you normally start with boots, make the helmet, then the leggings, and finally the chest plate. But a much better method is to save your resources, avoid making the boots and helmet, and craft a chest plate immediately. That is because the chest plate gives more armor than those two combined and uses fewer resources to craft. Speaking of armor, you normally add protection, mending, and unbreaking to every piece. But I also see many people adding the Thorns enchantment, and it is usually quite useful. However, when you use this enchantment, you need to know that whenever you deal damage back to a creature, your armor also loses durability. So if your armor is breaking very quickly, it may be because of the Thorns enchantment. The name tag was once one of the rarest items in Minecraft because you could only find it randomly in chests inside the game structures. And there were not many structures in the past. You probably remember finding a name tag in a nether fortress. But the reality is that they have never generated there. That is only a collective false memory. One of the blocks that lets you carry the largest amount in the smallest space is obsidian. This may sound a little confusing because you can carry 64 of most blocks in this space. But the ender chest gives obsidian that is special trick that lets you carry 8 stacks in a single slot. When you break it with a regular pickaxe, it gives you 8 obsidian. That means carrying 64 ender chests in your inventory is equivalent to carrying 8 times that amount in obsidian. There is a very specific way to hide your items using a shulker box. That is because it is the only block where you can place several items inside and then break it to turn everything into a single little item in your inventory. But the special part is that just as you can place it in a chest, a furnace, or anywhere else, you can also put it in an item frame. So if you find a little gap under or beside your chest, you can place an item frame with a shulker box there, leaving it hidden so nobody will ever find your items. Many people think the apple is the only fruit in Minecraft, but there are actually 7 fruits in the game. The apple, melon, cocoa bean, pumpkin, chorus fruit, sweet berry, and even glowberry. And yes, the pumpkin really is a fruit. One of the latest creatures added to the game was the nautilus, that you can put a saddle on it and ride it to move very quickly underwater. But there is a way to move even faster underwater, and it does not involve throwing speed potions at the nautilus. It actually uses this variant here, which is the zombie nautilus. It will always spawn with a drowned riding it, but after defeating that drowned, you take control of the nautilus, and for some reason the zombie nautilus is 10% faster than a normal nautilus. Whenever you visit the witch hut in the swamp, there is a little black cat inside. But did you know that if you spawn other cats with a command or even with this spawn egg, they will also always be black cats while they are inside this place? The desert is increasingly becoming the most dangerous biome in Minecraft. Besides having few water and no wood, both the desert variants of the zombie and skeleton also spawn here. This zombie is called a husk, does not burn in sunlight, and applies the hunger effect when it hits you. And this skeleton is called the parched, also does not burn in sunlight, and shoots arrows of weakness. When several creatures are packed together in the same place, I already said that you begin taking a lot of damage. But if there is somewhere for your player to escape, you simply go flying very far away. Because of that, if you place several boats on the same block, you are launched very far away when you touch them. It may seem random, but you can use this to make an elytra launcher so you do not have to use as many rockets. The spear is the newest weapon in Minecraft, but it has a major problem. While holding the spear, you cannot break any blocks, and even if you are in creative mode, you cannot break anything. Because of that, if you put a player inside a trap and keep giving them spears infinitely, they will never be able to get out. In my opinion, one of the most beautiful biomes in Minecraft is the flower forest. A huge variety of Minecraft's flowers grows here, and it is a great place if you want to obtain different dyes. But what few people know is that there are 6 flowers that do not grow here. These 2 here can only be obtained from the sniffer. The wither rose can only be obtained when the wither defeats a creature, and this flower is exclusive to pale gardens. But what makes no sense is that this blue flower can only be obtained in a swamp, while the sunflower can only be obtained in sunflower plains. I think they should grow in the flower forest too. If you have ever cleared the terrain at the bottom of your world, you probably noticed that the bedrock has this very strange pattern. Some blocks are higher, others are lower, and together they form something that looks very strange. This random pattern will be different in every world you create, and it depends on your world seed. But few people know that this pattern will always be the same in every world, specifically in Bedrock Edition. So I created a world here, and if we go to coordinates 100 minus 100, this is the bedrock pattern. Now if we enter a completely different world, use a command to teleport to those coordinates and clear the area, the bedrock will be exactly the same because it is always identical in Bedrock Edition, regardless of the world. Few people stop to think about it, but water is one of the oldest blocks in Minecraft. It is very iconic, creates this infinite source when placed in this shape, and even lets the player stop a fall with only 1 block. But something even more iconic that few people notice is that Minecraft's water will always be at the same height in your world. Looking from up here, there are several mountains and landforms, but you can see that the water is always at the same level, and that height is sea level, which is exactly why level 63. There is a very simple way to use maps in Minecraft. I think this is important because I see many people trying to use maps and getting confused about which direction they need to go. The easy way to orient yourself is to look toward where the sun rises and then turn left. By doing that, the player will be facing north in Minecraft, and this is extremely important because the map also follows the compass directions just like maps in real life. Now that I am facing north, I only have to walk forward for my player to move upward on the map, and then move left for my player to move left on the map. We have already already covered more than half of the fun facts, and I wanted to stop by to remind you not to forget to subscribe to the channel, so subscribe right now! Everyone already knows that drinking a milk bucket removes every potion effect from the player, but the problem is that it removes both positive and negative effects. What few people know is that there is a way to remove the poison effect specifically. Find a bee nest and collect a bottle of honey. When you drink it, you restore a little hunger and also remove the poison effect while keeping all the other positive and negative effects. If there is a bed below you and you are falling from a very high place, clicking the bed will make it look like you are safe. But when you leave the bed, the player takes all the fall damage at once and you die instantly. The good part is that because you slept in the bed, at least you respawn beside it and can pick up your items. A few fun facts ago, I showed that making this shape above the sapling lets you grow the large tree variant. But if you do not like it because breaking all the leaves to reach the wood is very annoying, there is a way to always guarantee that the small tree will grow. All you have to do is build 6 blocks above the tree and place 1 more block up here, so there are 7 in total. Break these first 6 and leave that one up there, and whenever you grow the tree, it will always be the small variant. When you think about how to defeat creatures, it is very common to remember the axe, sword, and even the bow and arrow. But the reality is that you can even defeat them with a water bottle. And I am not talking about using the water bottle to hit the creatures. In fact, the Blaze and Enderman specifically take damage when you throw this water bottle at them. The spear is the newest weapon added to Minecraft, and it has many interesting interactions. But my favorite one is definitely that if you enchant a spear with knockback 2, you can ignite TNT and hit it to launch it far away. If someone asked you what the rarest tree in Minecraft is, I imagine you would say the azalea tree, or a tree from an extremely rare biome. But it is actually this dark oak tree that generates in woodland mansions. That is because a dark oak tree normally only grows when you place 4 saplings together, and there is no point in trying to grow only 1 sapling. The only place where a dark oak tree with just 1 trunk grows is in this specific room of the woodland mansion, and I have no idea why. After you defeat the Ender Dragon, you can use 4 crystals around this bedrock fountain to revive it. But a player discovered that if you manage to remove these portal blocks in the middle, you can use only 2 crystals placed exactly diagonally from each other to revive the dragon as well. Combining 8 chiseled stones with an iron ingot makes this lodestone. Place it on the ground and click it with a compass, and now your compass becomes enchanted and always points toward this lodestone. By placing several of them in important locations throughout your world and creating several compasses, 1 for each lodestone, you can mark all those places. Just rename each compass after its location and put everything inside this little bundle, and you have a portable GPS. When you open a chest, the word chest appears up here, but if you rename this chest in an anvil, the name that appears up here will also change to whatever name you gave it. You can transmit redstone signals using leaves. This happens because there is a difference between leaves that have wood beside them and leaves that have nothing beside them. That is because when you break all the wood from a tree, the leaves left by themselves have to decay. But because the observer detects any change in the block it is watching, if we have a column of leaves and place wood beside it, the observer can detect that we place the wood and transmit the redstone signal far away. Few people know this, but Minecraft paintings are references to real life. This one is called Aztec and is a reference to the Aztec map from the game Counter-Strike. This other one is called Bomb and is also a reference to Counter-Strike, but to the Dust 2 map. Now this one with a rose is called Meditative and is a reference to a painting by Salvador Dali. This other man is a reference to a painting by the artist Caspar David, and the one called Graham is a reference to the game King's Quest. Even this one is a reference to a Minecraft movie, and this other one references the game Donkey Kong. If you create a completely empty world in Java Edition, you can see the sun and moon rotating around each other to create day and night. If you create the same type of world in Bedrock Edition, there will only be the sun or only the moon. The wet sponge is the only item in Minecraft that gives you 2 results in a furnace. That is because when you place a normal item in the furnace, it smelts and the result comes out here and nothing else happens. But if you place a wet sponge in the furnace and then put a bucket down here, when it finishes smelting, a dry sponge comes out on this side and the water goes into the bucket below. Minecraft cats can work as locks for your chest. That is because cats like to sit on several blocks and even lie on the bed with the player. But when a cat sits specifically on top of a chest, you can no longer open that chest. And by doing this in a chest room where the cat stays hidden, you can confuse people a lot. The Bane of Arthropods enchantment has a secret effect, and I already showed that the Smite enchantment increases your damage against undead creatures. Bane of Arthropods does the same thing, but against arthropods. But one property that is not widely known is that attacking an arthropod with a sword carrying this enchantment also applies the slowness effect to the creature. Some Minecraft creatures can use their left hand. It is very common to see the player using the left hand because there is this little slot in your inventory for holding something in the second hand. But the interesting part is that creatures can do this too. Of all the creatures that spawn in the game, 5% will have a chance of spawning while using their left hand instead of their right. A wither skeleton has a special interaction with bows. That is because when you normally find a wither skeleton, it will always be holding a stone sword. Even if you throw better equipment or even a bow at it, it keeps holding the stone sword and never switches item. But if you use a command specifically to remove the sword and make it hold a bow and arrow, this wither skeleton begins shooting flaming arrows even if the bow has no enchantment. Beetroot soup is one of the most useless items of all. I have never met a player who has eaten beetroot soup, and I think most people did not even know it exists. But there is a good reason for that. When you make this soup, you use 6 beetroots and a bowl down here on your crafting table. It restores a hunger and gives you no additional effect. But the bad part is that eating the beetroots by themselves would restore the same amount of hunger. And in the process of making the soup, you use a bowl and still have to use a crafting table. This item is really bad. I am sure you are making your crops incorrectly. I often see players making farms with only one type of food. So they make a huge carrot field, a huge potato field, and so on. That does work, but there is a much better way. If you need food very quickly, alternating your crops by placing one row of one food and one row of another makes each crop grow much faster, and you can see a very clear difference. This is a reference to a strategy used in real life called crop rotation. Some Minecraft blocks have a special effect, like soul sand, which makes the player slower, or the honey block, which prevents you from jumping. But many people normally don't use these blocks because it becomes very easy to see that they are on the floor. One way around this is to place slabs or carpets on top of them, because even though it looks like the block is not there, its effect is still applied. This is especially useful because you can use the soul speed enchantment to make the entire floor of your house out of soul sand and move very quickly without leaving the ugly soul sand visible. You can crawl extremely fast. Everyone already knows that using a trapdoor with the player standing in front of it makes the player lie down, and then you can start moving this way and even break blocks here to make a secret base. But what I imagine few people know is that by exploring ancient cities, you can find the swift sneak enchantment. Putting it on leggings makes the player move much faster while crouching, but for some reason it also works while the player is lying down, and it is very useful for mining in a straight line and looking for diamonds. You can have one of these teleportation chambers in the nether. It is very common to see players place a water column with soul sand underneath to make this bubble column, and then throw an ender pearl on top so it floats in the bubbles indefinitely and can be activated whenever you want to teleport. But when you try to do this in the nether, it does not work because water cannot exist there. A smart solution players discovered is to use a honey block to slow down the pearl and then use a slime block to keep launching it upward indefinitely. This way the pearl stays in this cycle in the nether, and you can use it to teleport whenever you want. By combining 6 wool blocks and a stick, you can make this banner, and then by placing it on the loom with some dye, you can customize the banner. But what few people consider is that you can make every letter of the alphabet with the available patterns and use them to build a very cool sign. The alley is the creature with the highest regeneration in the game. This may seem strange because there are several powerful bosses in Minecraft that regenerate health while you fight them, but surprisingly, the alley regenerates more than all of them. Its regeneration is so powerful that if you leave an alley underwater or on top of a campfire, it can heal more health than the damage being dealt to it, and it can stay there forever. If you throw any item to an adult piglin, it ignores it completely. It only picks up items made of gold, but if you throw any item to a baby piglin, it holds the item even if it is not made of gold. Because of that, you can fill a shulker box with several items and then throw it to a baby piglin so it can keep your items hidden. The interesting part is that whenever you want the items back, you only need to throw a gold item to the baby piglin, and it will trade it for your shulker box. Many people use campfires as a way to defeat monsters in a farm, and that does work, but a better method is to use a soul campfire because it deals much more damage. There are fossils in Minecraft, and the most people have never seen. That happens because they are already very rare and only generate in swamp, desert, and mangrove biomes with a very small chance. But by exploring underground in any of these biomes, you may randomly find these bone blocks, and by digging around them, you will realize that it is a complete fossil. The interesting part is that there will often also be diamond and coal ore among these bones. All ore blocks are completely solid, and you can tell because when you place one on top of a chest, the chest will not open. But for some reason, even though the redstone block is also completely solid, you can still open a chest beneath it. Some Minecraft cats have heterochromia. This is a special condition that makes each eye a different color, and 2 cats in the game have this heterochromia. Minecraft dogs have different personalities. Different dog variants that you find in Minecraft biomes were recently added, but that is not what I'm talking about. In fact, each dog also has a hidden property, which is its personality. This doesn't change its behavior or appearance, but it changes the way it barks. This is the bark of an angry dog, and this is the bark of a peaceful dog. You can paralyze a Ravager using a shield. This is the Ravager and it only spawns during village raids. But when it appears, you have to be very careful because it is very dangerous. Because of that, Mojang thought of a way for you to react to this creature. Simply blocking its attack with a shield paralyzes it for a few seconds and gives you a chance to attack it. There are 2 cats in Minecraft that were inspired by real-life cats. The first one is called Tuxedo and was based on the cat of Jeb, a Minecraft developer. There is also this other one called Jelly, which was based on a real-life cat also named Jelly from the YouTube channel Good Times with Scar. Nether brick is the only material in Minecraft that has both a wall and a fence. And the nether brick fence is the only fence in the game that does not have a gate variant. Any block you place beside a cactus makes the cactus break. The only exception is placing snow layers beside it until they form a full block, because then the cactus does not break. Whenever you make a potion, you first place water bottles together with nether wart to make an awkward potion. But for some reason, the potion of weakness is the only potion in the entire game that does not use this awkward potion. A few facts ago, I said that the camel's favorite food is a rabbit's foot. It may seem very specific to know that, but the reality is that on the official Minecraft website, most animals have a page called Zoo that describes what the animal is like, what it likes, and even what Mojang used as inspiration to add that animal to the game. If you are in hardcore mode, you only have 1 life, and the game is locked to hard difficulty. But it is so locked that even if you enable commands and try to switch to peaceful mode, the game says it is in peaceful mode, while monsters still spawn. While exploring trial chambers, you can find many different and very interesting rooms. But my favorite by far is this entrance hall because you can see the faces of monsters when you look to the sides. If you enchant your pickaxe with efficiency 5 and then use a fully powered beacon with haste 2, you can break stone blocks instantly. But for some reason, if you take a golden axe, which is the fastest in the game, enchant it with efficiency 5 and use a beacon with haste 2, you still cannot break wood instantly. Using a wind charge creates this wind explosion that launches you very high. The same explosion happens when you have the wind burst enchantment on a mace, but you have to be very careful when using either of them because if you are wearing armor enchanted with blast protection, the wind explosion no longer launches you upward and both items become useless. So those were the 100 facts, and if you didn't know one of them, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like and a hype, and I will see you in the next one.